We're always trying to get a jump on those prospects that could help us in fantasy baseball before they get the call. But man, at the rate they've been going lately, it's hard to keep up. It reminds me of the title of that classic piece of cinema, Too Fast, Too Furious. So this week, Beat the Breakout, we're going to talk about two pitchers that are about to make their debut in the majors and two hitters that have already debuted. And then there's another hitter that, if you haven't stashed already, it might be too late, but let's talk about him anyways. But first, let's go with Drew Thorpe of the Chicago White Sox. Now, we've seen a couple of White Sox pitchers called up and it didn't go too well, especially Nick Nastrini, but Drew Thorpe might be different. Remember, this is one of the centerpieces of the Dylan Cease trade. This was a high-end prospect from the New York Yankees system. And he was part of that huge Juan Soto trade before getting flipped eventually to the White Sox. I mean, this says something for his value, right? His future value, that these teams coveted him so much. Now he's going to get a chance to debut. He's getting called up on Tuesday, going to start, looks like, against the Seattle Mariners. The good thing here is that this isn't just a move out of necessity. I mean, let's face it, the White Sox need everything and anything, but this isn't a player who's being rushed forth just to fill in an emergency. This is somebody who has actually been dominant throughout the minors. He had one of the highest swing strike rates at AA last year, and this year in 11 starts, he's pitched to a 1.35 ERA, a 0.87 whip. He's got 56 Ks in 60 innings. I think it's also encouraging that he's averaging about 6 innings per start. So you know that he can go as pretty much as far as pitchers go these days in the majors. He's not going to be thrown out there 3-4 innings just to see what he can do. I think this is a guy who legitimately could be a frontline starter for the White Sox very soon. I say that also because you know White Sox are going to be sellers. Their ace right now, Garrett Crochet, probably will be on the move, along with guys like Eric Fetty, who knows who else. So I like the fact that if you get Thorpe, if he does hold his own in his first few starts in the major leagues, then that means he could be there long-term, rest of the season. We're not going to see him shuffled back and forth. The main thing you look for with Thorpe is that he has possibly the best changeup in the minors right now, and he'll probably feature one of the best changeups in the majors when he does get to face major league hitting, which is going to be very soon. Look, I will say this like I say with every pitching prospect. You don't have to rush him out there and put him in your lineup his first or second time around. We've seen how this has gone lately, especially the guy who's the number one prospect for the Braves farm system, Hurston Waldrop, did not look good in his first start. Well, I will stash Thorpe and I will keep him on my bench. I don't have to start him, but I definitely want to hold on to him in case he is ready. Another rookie pitcher making his debut on Tuesday night is going to be Carlos F. Rodriguez for the Brewers. Now this one is a little bit more out of need as opposed to the way he's performed, and I'll tell you why. Because Robert Gasser, remember this is a pitcher we hit on a couple of weeks ago, looked great in his first couple of starts, then not so great, and then we know why, because afterwards felt some elbow tightness, and of course we know what's happening now. It looks like his season might be over. Now, the good thing with Gasser is that it sounds like it's not a tear, and so surgery is not imminent, but it's still on the table. But the bad news is, either way, it sounds like he's not pitching again anytime soon. So there's another hole in that rotation. The Brewers have had so many injuries. Remember DL Hall early in the season. And so now they're going to turn to one of their next top pitching prospects, Carlos Rodriguez. Now, I mentioned performance. Well, for Rodriguez, it hasn't been there this year. At the AAA level, got an ERA over 5. And as he's moved up levels, his K rate has dropped, including his swinging strike rate. So he's having some trouble adjusting to the competition, which makes you a little nervous of how he's going to do now he's up in Milwaukee. So I would definitely take a wait-and-see approach. But I will say this also, his first start is going to be against Toronto. This is a pretty good way to start out your big league career because, as we've been talking about all season, the Blue Jays, one of the worst offenses in the pros. And like Thorpe with Rodriguez, it's mostly about the changeup. That's his best pitch, and also a slider. He's not going to try to blow hitters by with his fastball. He also has a 5-pitch mix that's always enticing because he finds various ways to keep hitters off balance. So we'll see how he does. Again, I'm going to definitely take a wait-and-see approach with this, but Rodriguez does have a chance to earn a spot in that rotation. Now for the Colorado Rockies, they just called up their number 1 overall prospect, and that is shortstop Adael Amador. In fact, he's already got a couple games under his belt, got 1 hit in his first 6 at-bats. Now, for the time being, he's playing second base because he's filling in for Brendan Rodgers, got a strained hammy. They have him hitting 9th, which is not surprising. We'll see if he's going to be able to work his way up. We'll see if he actually is able to stay in the lineup even when Rodgers returns. Who knows when that'll be. Now, this call-up was also a little surprising because right now at the AA level across 170 at-bats, he was only batting 194. This Rockies team has called up a lot of their prospects, especially on offense. I want to see what they got because why not? Amador does not bring a lot of power to the table. Speed is decent, but he's not going to be a huge stolen base threat, I don't think. And, hitting 9th in that lineup is obviously not going to be, very good for that either. But still, Amador could help you with batting average. He's an intriguing prospect. Better for Dynasty than for a redraft league. A keeper league, he's probably going to be taken if he isn't already. But in redraft, look, if you're in a deeper league, I think worth a speculative add. Let's keep an eye on him and see how he adjusts. Now let's go to Seattle, who's also been fairly aggressive, sometimes calling up their hitting prospects. Remember a couple weeks ago, Ryan Bliss got called up. It didn't really do that great. Well, now they need a first baseman because Ty France is on the IL. And in fact, with a hairline fracture, it's probably going to be on the shelf a lot more than just 10 days. That paves the way for Tyler Locklear, who can play either first or third base. In his major league debut, which just took place, he got a hit, scored a run, batting 7th in the lineup. Look, Mariners haven't been the best offense this year, but they do have a little bit of thump at least. He's got some potential for RBI opportunities there, especially if they ever get going completely. Locklear's been a really fast riser throughout the minors and was doing pretty well so far this year, hitting 293, 9 home runs, and 33 RBIs at Double and Triple-A this year combined. Locklear really isn't a known prospect, like someone who maybe is a Seattle Mariners fan or really follows prospects closely, might be familiar, but your casual fan, your casual fantasy baseball player won't be. Be honest, I didn't know much about him either. I just had heard the name. And looking into it, look, he's got some power. He's definitely hitting for average. He could do something here at the major league level. When a guy rises quickly because of how he's performed, that's always a good sign. But if you need help at third base, I'll say it again, this might be your last chance to try to stash Noelvi Marte, the Cincinnati Reds. Now I say that because, again, even though he isn't eligible to come off his suspension until June 27th, well, he's about to start his rehab because, well, being suspended for so long, going to be a little bit rusty. Look, this just means he can get into game action, but once we start hearing these news reports about him, once you start hearing about how he's performing in these rehab games, people will kind of realize, oh yeah, this was a really high-end fantasy option toward the end of last year. Someone who was a very popular draft sleeper until that suspension hit, and people will start to add him. You can scoop him up right now. Depending on your league's rules and all that, you may be able to stash him in an NA spot because he's technically not in the minors yet, although he will be soon. He's suspended. But look, at the very least, make way for him because this is a guy who should belong on all fantasy rosters once he's actually back with the Reds. Still counts as a prospect because last year he just missed that cutoff. 114 at-bats, and all he did was hit 316 with 3 home runs and 6 steals. He's got power, he's got speed, he can hit, and I think that most likely once he does get back with the Reds, he's going to take over for Heimer Candelario. He'll play third base because he's a better fielder, and he might wind up being third in that lineup. So I'll say it again for the last time on this particular series at least. If he's out there in waivers in any of your leagues, this is the time to stash him. It's time to make a move on some of those promising young players in your fantasy league. But is it time to worry about these aging veterans, stars who are starting to struggle? Let's find out.